Well, it's getting to be that time again. Good morning, everybody. Out here with the ladies today, and I forgot to bring my tripod, so apologies if it's a little shaky. But I figured all of my chicken and homesteading Facebook groups are abuzz right now because of the controversy over chicken feed. This all started from a TikTok video, and I will admit to not having watched it, or I think maybe I did and I started to and just But I have seen the YouTube's abuzz and all of my groups on Facebook, and it's taking over. But the basic premise is that supposedly Tractor Supply Company is putting something in its feed that is stopping chickens from laying. Or that they have somehow changed their formula to make it less nutritious. And if anything at all, I'm going to say the latter is more likely, because between supply chain and inflation and all of that, yeah, who knows? It could be, we've seen shrinkflation happening. We've seen lower quality product across the board in many things. And it could be the case in the chicken feed. I don't know that. But I think if anything, that's likely what's happening. But what people are saying is that their chickens have stopped laying altogether, and it's all a conspiracy to keep us from having our own food sources. And I'm going to tell you, I don't buy it. What they say is that their chickens stopped laying altogether, and then when they switched feed, their chickens started laying again. Now, when I say I don't buy it, I mean it literally, because I actually do not feed the Tractor Supply feed that they say is causing this. I feed Pool and Grain. This comes from my local feed store, my local co-op. Oh, did that scare you? That made my leghorn here, Rose, very nervous. Poor Rose is molting, and she's got a naked butt, and I think her tail feathers are gonna go. Look at this naked butt you've got. Can I see? Here, let's see the other side. Let's see the other side, Rose. Chicken booty! Chicken booty! So yes, I don't feed the Tractor Supply Grain, and I experienced a complete stoppage of eggs. It happened right about the time that we had the big deep freeze that went all across the country. It was unseasonably cold, negative temperatures, and it didn't get super cold here like it did in some areas like Texas or South Dakota. It's the Northeast. We're used to cold temperatures. It got down to about 9 degrees, but my girls were personally offended and stopped work. I didn't have any eggs throughout the whole month of December, and then finally Rose, the leghorn there, dependable girl that she is, did start to lay. And so we were getting about 1 egg a day for most days. And then about 2 weeks ago, the rest of them joined in. One of them was on a molt. The other two just were on strike, I guess. But about 2 weeks ago, they did start laying again. And there really wasn't any change in their feed, except for one thing. One thing I did change, and I did a video on it a couple of weeks ago, not knowing that this huge big thing was going to come into play. Yes, this bag is from Do More Scratch Grains. It is something that is sold at Tractor Supply. And it was supposed to look like this. Lots of oats, wheat, corn, Milo, peas, and I'll tell you, it was just a whole bunch of Milo, a little bit of cracked corn, and a bunch of dust. And so it was terrible, and I would not recommend buying this scratch grain because it was not as advertised. Now, what's in this bag looks far better. So much better. As you can tell, my chickens really love it, and I will definitely be continuing to buy that. I got it at Agway from a small company called Ashley's Chickens, and you will find the link here in this video. I don't know that they ship, but you know, check your local feed store for local products, and it's generally going to be better quality and pretty great price. But as you can see, I am out of grain and it's time to go to the feed store. There's been a lot of talk recently about the skyrocketing price of eggs. Whereas in my area, people used to look at people selling eggs on the roadside, you know, their homegrown eggs for $5 a dozen is like, wow, that's a lot for eggs. But now even the cheapest eggs in the grocery store near me, it may be different where you are, but we're talking $6 or $7 for a dozen, and that's nuts. But where that comes from is the bird flu that has been going around the last year or so has taken a huge toll on the stock of egg-laying chickens in the country, as well as there's been a couple of scattered fires, and also feed costs are going up huge because you've got everything going on over in Ukraine. Well, Ukraine is the breadbasket basically of the whole world. You know, something like 30% of the world's grain is grown in Ukraine. I don't know the numbers on how much of that we import here. I think for the most part, the U.S. grows what it needs, but I don't have all the figures on that. But I know that globally has caused a huge rise in costs for wheat, and that's really having implications everywhere. So your animals are taking more to feed, thus their production cost is higher, therefore their wholesale and retail costs are going to be higher. So there's a lot of factors there combining to make that happen. But when it comes to this feed issue, like I said, I'm not buying it. I feed Poulin grain, which is good quality grain. I get it from my local co-op. I feed those scratch grains that comes from that local small business called Ashley's Chickens. But that is a very recent thing that I found. And before that, I actually didn't really feed a lot of scratch grains. It was mostly just giving them some black soldier fly larvae along with their regular layer pellets and scraps from the garden. I only added in the scratch grains when the garden scraps, you know, were pretty much gone. So the ladies that were laying, my speckled Sussex took a while to get going, but my Easter egger, my olive egger, and my leghorn were all laying regularly right up until the end of November. Then the country went into this huge cold snap. It got very cold, like I said, about down to 9 degrees in my area, although I know it got much colder in a lot of the rest of the country, a lot colder than it normally does. And my personal feeling, this is just me, I feel like that kind of shocked the system a little bit because it went from above average temperatures to frigid like that. And I know that from that weekend on, my chickens stopped laying completely. Not even my leghorn was laying at all. And I know people will say, well, yeah, chickens slow down laying in winter, but they don't stop. Yeah, they can, and they often do. Now, full disclosure, this is my first year owning chickens, but I have multiple chicken mentors, and they have had chickens for years and years, and they all tell me that, yes, sometimes they stop laying. And my girls stopped laying. And then about 2 weeks ago, all of a sudden I come out, there's 3 eggs in the coop. The next day, there's 3 eggs in the coop. The next day, there's 3 eggs in the coop. And everybody is laying, even the speckled Sussex. She lays about every other day. My Easter egger lays about every other day, or my olive egger will lay every other day. And so I routinely get about 3 eggs a day. Sometimes I get 4. And that gives me about 2 dozen every 7 to 8 days. So that's not half bad for a little 4 chicken flock. And I've changed nothing with their food. And that's what people are saying, is that they were feeding Tractor Supply chicken feed, and their chickens all of a sudden stopped laying. And then they switched and changed to another food a couple of weeks ago, and all of a sudden they're all laying again. And I'm gonna poke some holes there, and I'm gonna say that probably has to do with the fact that we are now in late January and we have more sunlight. And some of these people are saying we switched to a higher quality layer feed and now they're laying. Well, duh. Of course, if you switch to a higher quality feed, they're getting better nutrition. That's going to have an effect on them laying. I mean, it doesn't take a genius to put that together, that if you switch to a better feed, you're going to get better results. So, like I said, my chickens were on strike. They stopped laying. They then started laying again as it got a little warmer and a little more light, and I didn't change anything. When it comes to this big issue going on right now, I want you to take into consideration that there are YouTubers who are here to help you, and there are YouTubers who are here to make a buck. Obviously, all YouTubers that monetize their channel, obviously they're doing this as hopefully their full-time job someday. That's me. I obviously want to be able to do this and pay my bills. But I'll tell you, there are some channels out there that really dive into this fear-mongering, and I don't doubt that they believe it to some extent. But I spoke to a very large YouTuber, and I'm not going to say who this person is. But this person said to me, and this isn't a direct quote because I can't remember the exact words, but minus an if or a but or a whatever here, this is what they said to me. I can do a video on doing farm chores, and that's good for 20,000 views. But I can do a video in that same time doing my farm chores and talking about how they're gonna get you, how they're trying to get you, and how to keep from getting got. And that's gonna get 250,000 views. So when we discovered that, we leaned into it, and that's what we're doing now. So to me, that's really disingenuous. It means that you've got to keep finding things to talk about with how they're going to get you, but you never actually offer proof on it. You just say, this is what they're doing. They're going to get you. And I mean, I am a YouTuber that's a proponent for taking control of what you can. Control your controllables. I can control how much I'm spending for my eggs by having chickens. And really, are you saving that much when you consider the cost of feed, the cost of scratch, the cost of medical care, the cost of the housing, the time that you take? I mean, really, you get chickens because you want to know where your food is coming from. You want to know that they're not being pumped full of antibiotics or all these other things. You want to control your controllables. It's not always a cost saver, even with eggs at $7 or $8 per dozen. Now, I'm not making this video to argue with those channels. I really don't want to get into a beef because I'm not as good at trolling as they are. I'm not here to start any arguments with anybody. I'm just here to say, just because you hear it on YouTube doesn't make it true. Correlation is not causation. Tractor Supply has stated that they have not changed their formula. And I'm not going to argue. I'm just going to try something here. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to recommend you take things on YouTube with a grain of salt. And instead of going down the road to Essex County Co-op to get my bag of Poulin layer feed, I'm going to go get my layer feed here today. there you have it, folks. I am putting my eggs where my mouth is. I'm going to feed that Producer's Pride Tractor Supply brand to my chickens. It's a 40-pound bag. I have 4 chickens. That should last me about a month. It takes about 2 weeks to adjust to a new feed. And so I'm going to feed that and see what happens. And then I'll probably wait to update this until about 2 weeks after we finish that bag, because I want to see what happens from switching to it and then switching back off it. My prediction is that you're not going to see much change. Nothing else about their diet is going to change. They're still going to get their kitchen scraps. They're going to get their usual scratch grains. My prediction is that their production is going to remain the same. I will come back and update this probably about 2 weeks after I finish this bag, because I want to make sure that they've had time to adjust both onto the grain and back off of it, and we'll see what happens. So I'll see you in that video. Just a reminder that if a channel is constantly telling you to be afraid and telling you to watch out, you might want to take that with a grain of salt. Okay, guys, I will talk to you in my next video when we're going to be talking about what happened with closing on the new property, and we're going to go from there, because it's taken an even funnier turn and just wow. So I will see you then, guys. Bye-bye.